money doesn't solve this problem.
No,
right? Money doesn't solve this. This is a human issue. This isn't a money problem.
It is, and it's a socioeconomic issue. It's poverty. There was no rich guys in prison.
Right. Not where you were.
Not where I was. There was no rich guys. You know what I mean? And we had 15 guys from the same housing project, notorious housing project here in Norfolk, in my pod. And I'm like, they grew up together. And I'm like, and they accept the fact that they're in prison. It's no big deal. And it's not getting better. There's no correction inside the facilities I was in.
Yeah, that's where I was going with this.
You're going to get worse. You're going to get worse. There was a guy who, first time he ever did heroin was in prison. He goes, that's where my love affair with heroin started, right here. And he hasn't been the same since.
Yeah. So that's a couple questions, just kind of moving on that. And that would be, what is a guy like you seeing all this stuff, right? What is a guy like you doing to avoid, steer clear of it, still having to, I guess the term I would say is operate and live in this environment. Yeah. What do you do? How do you stay out of all of this stuff, man, and make it through to the other side? Because people do. You're an example of that. How do you do it?
I tell you, and I met a group of, like I said, everything's race in prison, white boys, very in shape guys. They hung out together. One of the guys, Wayne, he kind of brought me under his wing and taught me how to move in prison, because you don't know how to move in prison if you've never been to prison. And anybody who's been in prison will go, yeah, he's telling the truth. What you think is right isn't right. What is wrong is right. You don't know how to move. And I certainly did not. And these guys were all, religion in prison were also true guys. Odinism and, the Viking religions, which was approved by Department of Corrections. So I fell in with those guys. Okay. And if it wasn't for some of the things they told me, I don't know, like going out to rec. Like, okay, in the rec yard, over here's the Bloods. Over here's Crips. That's DMI. Stay away from this group. If you have a problem, we have a guy who, every group has a big homie on the yard. And that person, if you have an issue with a group, will go over there and, parlay, make an agreement that, hey, dude, let's not get this out of control. And we had a guy in our group who did that. And he was very well spoken. He was a tough guy. And I kind of fell in with those guys. And they lived on, morals and values. And I like that. Simple stuff. Like, this is one time where I really had to check myself and go, okay, don't fall into this life too much. 3 gangbangers came into our pod who weren't from our pod. So there's a charge right there. You're not allowed to do that. Okay. And they jumped one guy. And it was right out in the middle of the pod. So there's one guy fighting 3 guys. And I'm like, why am I watching this? Like, I would never let somebody get jumped like this, if in my neighborhood or in a bar, I'm like, hey, dude, one-on-one. And I wanted to get involved. And I was telling my buddy Wayne about it. He's like, don't ever get involved. He goes, because you don't know what's going on. And I'm like, what do you mean? He goes, well, come to find out, that was a street beef with the Bloods out on the street that carried over to the prison. He was like, you don't get involved in anything, no matter what you think. And I'm thinking it's barbaric. And I'm standing around watching. I'm like, the fuck has happened to me? I mean, why am I watching this guy get just beat by 3 guys and I'm standing here? Like, we shouldn't do that as human beings.
It's not in you. Yeah, I get you. You're wrestling. I hear what you're saying there. You're wrestling internally with who you are, right, and what you know to be right, without maybe a full understanding of the social environment or having any clue about the social literacy that you need to onboard in order to survive and navigate this whole thing. That makes sense to me, man. I think I get that.
And here's another situation. I was in 340 in a top bunk, and a bottom bunk came open, and they moved me. It's called a bed move. I got moved to the bottom bed. But the whole section were Bloods. I'm the lone white boy sleeping, and this is an open pod. I mean, 2 foot to my right is the big homie. The big homies are like the shot caller for their group. Okay. And he was the big homie. And one of the white guys took me aside and was like, hey, man, they don't want you there. I heard them talking already that You're not welcome. And they're not going to live by you. I'm like, fuck.
So how do you correct this?
Well,
how do you figure this out?
Yeah. So I went and talked to Wayne, and he was like, go talk to the big homie and tell him what you've heard and see what the issue is. And, some people like, I would never do that. So I go over to their cut. He's on the other side of the pod, and there's a cut. It's about 2 feet in between bunks, and they're bunk beds. And, I knock on the cut, very respectful. I'm like, hey, I don't want to use their names. Hey, you guys got a minute? They're like, C, everybody called me C in prison. What's going on? I'm like, well, I heard through the grapevine, the white boys told me that I'm not welcome in that bunk. I didn't ask to move there. What can we do? What is going to happen? Because I don't want to live like this. And they're like, who said it? I go, well, you guys know you just beat him up the other night. He goes, no, you're good, see? He's fucking not. He was like, you're more than welcome to sleep there. He goes, matter of fact, the phones in prison are controlled by gangs. The 2 phones on the right are blood phones. The next phone's a crip phone. Don't fuck with them. You know what I mean? Like, don't get on you can't just go and pick that phone up. You'll get jumped. He was like, anytime you need the phones, you come and let us know and we'll put you on. He was like, we respect the fact that you came and spoke to us like a man. I'm like, whew. Like, I didn't know if I was going to get jumped, but you can't live next to a bunch of guys that are going to kill you. Right. What are you going to do? You're either going to lay there and cower and go, okay, I'm going to get stabbed in my sleep. I'm going to get hot water thrown on my face, which I saw while somebody's sleeping. Like, but they were very cool, man. And they respected the fact that I approached them as men in their cut. It's like, hey.
That's interesting. The whole concept of respect.
Yes.
And it obviously is what we're talking about here. And the respect will, generally speaking, I think respect's respect, right?
It wasn't because I was a tough guy. I'm not playing to be a tough guy, but, think about you being in a section of the pod. You're the only white guy, and everybody around you are bloods. And you hear they don't want you there.
Imagine.
Now what?
Yeah, again, I think people think they know who they are until they get in those into situations. And when I say those, I don't mean that. I have zero experience with that, but I've been in certain situations like, I thought something about myself, and that just proved that I have no idea about anything. I don't know shit about fuck, as they say, kind of thing.
But you can't go and talk to the correction officers about it, because that's called checking in.
Yeah.
Like, as soon as you say you're in danger, they're going to move you out of the pod. Okay, you checked in. Now you're going to get fucked up for real.
Now your whole situation changes, like at a whole different level.
Yeah.
That I've heard before as well. So it's like, it's navigating the social caste and social system.
And I had no idea how to do it.
Yeah. And I think what I heard you say there, without saying these exact words, is you are going to have to choose a team. You're going to have to choose a team. Going in and expecting that you're gonna do this all on your own is false thinking.
No matter how tough you think you are, and I'm somewhat. I consider myself well-rounded. I'm a good fighter. Mm-hmm. You're not ready for this,
right?
You're not. It's just you better find somebody. And luckily, I fell in with a good group of guys. Who the guy Wayne has been locked up since he was 17. Yeah, 26 years.
It's interesting, when I hear you talk too, because I think about this, and people, again, they have already made up their mind kind of who they are, maybe how they'd handle themselves, what's right, what's wrong, right, in their world, and then they get into a world that isn't their world, and you're going to have to wrestle, I guess, with what I hear you saying is you have to really wrestle with what you think is right and wrong, and survival, and because you're not thriving there. This is not a place where you're going to figure out how to thrive. It really is about survival.
Consequences for everything you do in prison, from the way you walk to who you associate with. Like there was a chomo, they call him chomo, child molester in our pod. And he would come by and talk to me. I didn't know who the fuck he was. And somebody took me aside and was like, hey, see, you know that guy's a chomo, right? I'm like, I had no idea. So next time he came around me, I'm like, hey, dude, get the fuck away from me.
Right.
Just get away from me.
It's black and white, right?
Yeah. I can't be associated with you, because then everybody thinks that I approve of what you did. And chomos are extorted, beat nonstop in prison. That's the way. So I'm not going to be around that. Get the fuck away from me.